So I'm looking at an article, a couple of articles this morning. Good morning, and it is talking about how rallies are still taking place. They're pro-Trump rallies. So right-wing and anti-Trump protesters they clashed in D.C. and it has under there editors please not contains profanity. Far right protesters and counter protesters fought in downtown Washington on Saturday night. This was December the 12th, which was yesterday, with local media reporting at least 4 people were stabbed, and the clashes took place amid Stop the Steal protests across the country. So this is going on right now, where groups are rallying together and they're having these protests. And it is, I want to warn you, it is very violent. So if you're considering going to any of these protests, amid what's going on, the pandemic, and people having to wear masks and social distance, with those rallies you can't really social distance, and then the violence is another factor of it. You don't know who's going to be carrying a knife or a gun and what the atmosphere is going to be like. So far, 4 people were stabbed. The clashes took place amid what they titled it Stop the Steal protest. So this is going on across the country, which conservative groups have claimed without evidence that the November 3rd election was stolen from President Donald Trump. So in Washington, around 200 members of the group called Proud Boys, they're a violent far-right group, joined the marches earlier near the Trump Hotel and were met by counter-protesters, including from the aggressive far-left anti-fascism movement Antifa. So police they quickly moved in to separate both groups using pepper spray on both sides, according to the witnesses. And so you might even see, I'm not showing videos, it may be commercials, but they had a video of it, and so I'm not going to show it. You can look at that at your own time, or if it happens to pop up. But this is what's going on. So police had to move in to separate the group with pepper spray, were both sides, according to the witnesses. But after dark fell, protesters they splintered out in smaller groups to roam the street in search of their rivals. So protests were also held in other communities across the state. Atlanta, Georgia, where Trump campaign has sought to overturn Joe Biden's election victory. And so here you can see some still photos of some of these protests right here. It's Stop the Steal protests that are going on. And so you can see how many people are gathered. You can also see a lot of people who are unmasked and they're not protected. So 4 stabbed and 1 shot after a pro-Trump rally held in D.C. So it has that. And so this one, I guess, is by Camille Camdesis. Um, 4 people were stabbed and 1 shot as the rally is backing President Donald Trump. Baseless claims of election fraud led to clashes in major U.S. cities on Saturday night. Scuffles broke out in many places between rally goers and counter-protesters who turned up to criticize the president who lost the November election on the 3rd to Joe Biden, president-elect, but is yet to concede. So Washington State Police said in a tweet late Saturday that a shooting had taken place after the clashes near the Capitol building in Olympia, and that a suspect had been detained. So the U.S. Capitol D.C. Fire EMS Department Communications Chief Doug Buckingham told AFP that 4 people had been stabbed and were now hospitalized with serious injuries. So the New York Times reported that 23 people had been arrested throughout the day. So there was no indication of whether any of the victims had been involved in the protest on either side of the divide. So the day had begun with a festive atmosphere as thousands of red-hatted protesters filled Washington streets to support the president, undeterred by the U.S. Supreme Court's rejection on Friday of what may have been his last chance to overturn the results. So similarly, events took place in Olympia, Atlanta, and St. Paul, Minnesota, as well as in smaller towns like Nebraska, Alabama, and elsewhere. So demonstrators at the DC rally, noticeably smaller than a similar protest last month, told AFP they were steadfast in their support for the embattled president. So we're not going to give up, said Luke Wilson, a 60-something protester who had come all the way from the western state of Idaho. I believe that there is a big injustice being done to the American people, he added. They'll quit irregular at Trump political rallies as he brandished the flag defending gun rights. Protesters offered no shortage of explanation for the poll results, even though they have been affirmed by state election officials, several of them Republican, and by judges in several key states. So every state has now certified the results, giving Biden 306 votes in the Electoral College to Trump's 232 votes. So electors are to formally cast their votes Monday, but protesters insisted, as Trump was or has repeatedly, that there was widespread fraud in the election. So some pointed to foreign interference, others to software that allegedly erased millions of votes for the president, but not those for other Republican candidates on the same ballots. And so Quick told AFP that there is no way possible that Biden won. Susan Bowman, 62-year-old from Hampton, Virginia, said this is not a banana republic, so we need to fix the election. So those who addressed the crowd included Michael Flynn, Trump's former national security advisor, who was recently pardoned by the president after admitting that he lied to the FBI over alleged Russian interference in the 2016 election. Stolen election. Dozens of court cases alleging fraud or contesting results have been decided, virtually all in Biden's favor, with some judges offering stinging criticism of the lack of evidence. But that was not enough for 47-year-old Darlene Denton, who wore a Trump 2024 badge on her sweatshirt. So nobody wants to hear evidence. Nobody wants to hear cases. Everything just gets thrown out, said Denton, who had come from Tennessee to support the president. She said had given a voice to the people. Trump, in the stark defiance to the clear results of the U.S. tradition, has refused to concede to Joe Biden-elect. Wow, thousands of people forming in Washington, D.C. for the Stop the Steal. He tweeted early Saturday, didn't know about this, but I'll be seeing them. Not long afterward, his helicopter lifted off from the White House grounds and passed over the crowd, many singing the U.S. national anthem as Trump headed to New York to attend an annual Army-Navy football game. Among the protesters, members of the far-right militia group Proud Boys were clearly visible in their signature black and yellow outfits, some wearing bulletproof vests, and they often drew cheers from others in the crowd. Some blocks away, supporters of the Black Lives Matter movement held their own much smaller rally chanting Nazis out. Police, some in riot gear, used their bodies and bicycles to keep the groups apart. There was also at least one clash between police and counter-protesters. So that's pretty much the articles. And so that's what's been going on. Also, I wanted to shift gears and show that there's a GOP congressman elect praising maskless Trump supporters. So this is what he claims a phony pandemic. And so I don't believe that, but this is what he's saying. And so I wanted to bring attention to this person here. He's been coming up, and this is by Dominique Mosbergen, a senior reporter for Huffington Post. And I've seen this not only in Huffington Post, but in other various media outlets, that there's someone who is going around claiming that what's killing many Americans and people abroad um, during the pandemic is something that isn't real, which that's part of the misinformation that a lot of people are getting. So also even these supporters of Trump that are attending these violent rallies. So looking out at the largely maskless throng of attendees at the pro-Trump rally in Washington, D.C. on Saturday, Republican Congressman-elect Bob Good is his name, dismissed the coronavirus pandemic as being what he calls as phony, and lauded the crowd as a group of people that gets it. So I can't tell you how great it is to look out there and see your faces, said Good, who won Virginia's 5th congressional district seat last month. This looks like a group of people that gets it. This is a phony pandemic. So this is not my words. This is coming from this Bob Good. So it's a serious virus, but it's a virus. It's not a pandemic. Continued Good. So he admits it's a virus, but he claims it's not a pandemic. So this is where the mixed information comes in at as well. So he continued on, who was wearing a Trump 2020 hat, but he wasn't wearing a mask when you saw this guy speaking at the podium. So Good's remarks come as the United States reports record-breaking COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and deaths that have basically skyrocketed to dangerous levels. So on Wednesday, at least 3,124 people in the U.S. died from coronavirus. So it was the first time that the daily death toll has surpassed 3,000. So, and it keeps rising as the disease keeps spreading. So he uses profanity in here. So he says, "Holy shit, Congressman-elect Bob Good of Virginia starts speaking and immediately proclaims, this looks like a group of people that gets it. This is a phony pandemic." And so a lot of people are really coming out and making remarks about this guy. It's very frustrating because of the messages that he sends. Um, and so there is video about it as well. And so it's real controversial. It's real angering for some people too that probably have lost loved ones amid this pandemic. And so that's what also has people not really feeling very happy about this man coming out and saying what he's saying. But um, you have here uh, this guy here. He's 2020 C-SPAN Freedom Plaza. So basically, it's a video saying basically what I just said. Thousands of Trump protesters or supporters, including members of the far-right Proud Boys group, gathered in D.C. on Saturday to protest the outcome of the presidential election, which Trump and his followers have claimed without a a shred of evidence that it was what they claimed was it was rigged. So they don't have any evidence, but Good was among the handful of public figures who followed up or showed up in person to the pro-Trump rally demonstration to lend support. So others included Trump's former national security advisor Michael Flynn, who was pardoned by the president last month after pleading guilty to lying to the FBI about a conspiracy theorist, Alex Jones, and MyPillow CEO and controversial Trump donor, Mike Lindell. So speaking to the rally goers at Freedom Plaza, Good praised the demonstrators for standing up against what they call tyranny Um, it's great to see your faces. You get it. You stand up against tyranny. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for saying no to the insanity, he said. So basically, that's how that went. And so I guess you can see him here, right here. So rally for President Trump. So this is what's got people all fired up. And so some of these rallies and these gatherings have gotten really aggressive. They've gotten violent. They've even got people walking in the streets, and these groups, they are hunting out their rivals. Um, so I don't think that this is going to be over by a long shot at all. There's still going to be people who have their beliefs and who hold on to their ideas no matter what. And the problem with all of this is that it gets really dangerous, because when people attend these rallies thinking, I'm going to support my belief, yeah, you could be potentially putting yourself at risk of getting killed. Um, so that's pretty much these articles and this video. But this kind of stuff just happened. It's sad because right now we're still in the throes of a pandemic, and what they claim isn't is. And so if I just click on coronavirus, I'm sure that it'll give maybe some new data numbers on what's going on. And so coronavirus, the latest news. And so it actually said that it surpassed the 3,000 mark. And so California region has 0.0% availability of ICU capacity, meaning they don't have any beds that are available. They've kind of run out of beds because of the people that are being sick, coming in sick with the disease. So it says that the U.S. reports 16 millionth case vaccinations to begin on Monday. So that's how bad it is. And so um, Joshua Botti, Grace Hawk, Joel Shannon of the USA Today. So the U.S. on Saturday reported the 16 millionth COVID case, even as the newly authorized vaccine is already being distributed, and vaccinations are expected to begin on Monday, according to the federal officials. So it took 3 months for the U.S. to record its first millionth case. So, but it's been just 4 days between the 15th and the 16th million case milestone. So they've been really trying to track it. So yet another sign of the virus is spreading at alarming and deadly paces. Um, the nation's first authorized vaccine promises to help slow the pandemic in the coming months as the federal government races to quickly distribute it. So as I speak today, right now, vaccines are being packaged. So this is Gustave Perna, uh, and it says GEN, so General, I believe. I may be saying it wrong, but co-leader of the Operation Warp Speed. Um, so in charge of logistics, um, Saturday. So tomorrow morning, vaccines will start rolling out from manufacturing distributing hubs. By Monday, vaccines will be received. So vaccinations will begin on Monday. Dr. Nancy Mesner, Director of National Center of Immunization and Respiratory Diseases at the Center of Disease and Control Prevention, said this during a meeting on Saturday. And so healthcare workers and nurses, home residents are the first in line. Patients and caregivers will receive fact sheets describing the risks and the benefits. She said so earlier Saturday. Food and FDA, Food and Drug Administration officials reassured American public that the agency did not cut corners in the review and urged people to get vaccinated. So the U.S. is on the cusp of losing 300,000 people due to COVID-19. So they're still worried that the numbers are going to continue to rise as people either avoid getting the vaccination, or they continue to spread, the disease continues to spread throughout the population and more people get infected. And so keep refreshing this page for the latest update. So it's basically I believe, Pfizer and BioNTech's vaccines. Um, it shows that it is highly effective at preventing the disease. So the promising news will not immediately end the pandemic, which is raging out of control. Dr. Ugur Sahin, CEO of BioNTech, estimated it would be March or April before the vaccine could impact the virus spread. So that's how bad this is. So that would be in 2021. So that's where we would find a final end, at least probably some kind of reprieve or relief from this disease, underscoring the need for the measure of mask wearing and social distancing in the meantime. So mainly, people will have to can still continue wearing masks and social distancing, act as though the disease is spreading like all around them as it is, even after the vaccinations have been um, given to a large group of people. So about 1 in 8 U.S. hospitals had fewer than no intensive care unit beds available last week, according to new federal data. So experts say that the number of hospitals struggling to accommodate the nation's sickest patients likely will increase following another week of record COVID-19 cases. So 2 Florida men are facing federal charges that allegedly they say stole nearly 200 ventilators from the United States, shipped to El Salvador to help the Central American country treat coronavirus patients. Another day of a record deaths in the U.S. is Friday. It went to 3,309 people in the U.S. that died from coronavirus, according to the Johns Hopkins University data. So the previous record was set Wednesday at 3,124, and the first time in daily death tolls that have surpassed 3,000. As of Saturday, about 297,000 people in the U.S. have died. And so um, they say we're at the 16 million confirmed case. So the global totals is 71.6 million cases and 1.6 million deaths. So um, that says that the Story 21 Club in Midtown Manhattan, a favorite of celebrities and the power elite 9 decades, is closing indefinitely due to the coronavirus pandemic, but the owners are optimistic about reopening at some point. So the restaurant owners filed a notice about the closing in the city on Wednesday, saying that 148 employees will be terminated on March 9th. So the news comes as the indoor dining of New York City restaurant will be banned again starting on Monday in the effort to halt this resurgence of the virus. But takeout and outdoor dining will still be allowed. So the restaurant has been closed since last March during the first wave of the pandemic, as indoor dining was prohibited. So the 21 Club is what it's called. It was a favorite dining place of presidents since Franklin D. Roosevelt's day. Shortly after the 2016 election, President-elect Donald Trump broke protocol by leaving his Trump Tower residence without taking along his press contingent to eat at the restaurant. So John Steinbeck, um, Ernest Hemingway, Frank Sinatra had favorite tables at the 21 Club. Humphrey Bogart proposed to Lauren Bacall there, so it appeared in films ranging from the 1950s Betty Davis classic All About Eve in 1987's and Wall Street. Um, 1987's Wall Street. So the San Quentin County, part of California's vast Central Valley that produces most of the country's fruits and vegetables, the coronavirus is spreading like a weed, and the hospitals are running out of beds for the sickest patients there. So Joe Quinn, I said San Joe Quentin, but San Joe Quinn is part of the 12 county region that on Saturday, according to the California Department of Public Health, had 100% of its intensive care unit beds filled, the highest rate anywhere in California. And with cases continuing, um, at an unprecedented rate, the death toll inevitably will grow too. So, new stay-home order was imposed this week, but it's unknown whether it will have the intended consequence on the finally changing enough people's behavior to slow infection as the vaccines is being rolled out. So, the first shipment of Pfizer and BioNTech's COVID vaccine will move through UPS Worldport Global Air Hub and Louisville, Kentucky Airport Sunday, a company spokesman told the Courier Journal, part of the USA Today network. And so UPS said the vaccine will originate from the storage sites in Michigan and Wisconsin. So the vaccine will be transported to US UPS Worldport facilities in Louisville, where they will be expedited next day air to select destinations, including hospitals, clinics, and other medical facilities, to inoculate healthcare workers, the company said in the news release. So the shipments will arrive at the hub to be sorted and will be shipped out, and all on Sunday. UPS spokesman Jim Mayer said. So he said that he did not know how many um, that does will be moving through. So Mayer previously said that UPS will deliver to states in the eastern half of the U.S. FedEx will deliver to the western half of the U.S. Um, um, so we are not taking a victory lap, Operation Warp Speed official says. So the chief operating officer of Operation Warp Speed, the White House effort to fund, produce, and distribute a vaccine shared emergency authorization of Pfizer and BioNTech vaccine, but warned of a tough road ahead. While this moment is extraordinary, we have a lot of work to do, so we are not taking a victory lap. Perna said Saturday um, that he said that it wouldn't have made a difference to Operation Warp Speed if the FDA had authorized the vaccine Saturday instead of Friday. Our ultimate goal was to get it out there no later than Monday morning. He said. So Perner reiterated that Operation Warp Speed wouldn't distribute the second vaccine dose or a portion held in reserve until it has ultimately confidence that there are enough doses and the delicate distribution system works. And so that could change in January or February of 2021. So we want no vaccines on the shelf, Perna said. So it doesn't matter how effective the vaccine is if it's on a shelf. So Perna said vaccine doses were not positioned uh, in advance because the operation did not want to presume emergency use authorization. Under no circumstance did we want to get ahead of the great FDA and their decision making, he said. So amid concerns about how quickly the FDA issued the emergency authorization for the Pfizer and BioNTech vaccine, agency leaders stressed Saturday that they conducted a thorough, transparent review. So science and data guided FDA's decision. So we worked quickly because of the urgency of this pandemic, not because of any other external pressure. So FDA Commissioner Stephen Hahn said, so we will absolutely take this COVID-19 vaccine. And so Hahn said reports Friday that the White House had threatened to fire him if the agency did not authorize the vaccine that were inaccurate. And so Hahn said that the agency was very concerned about vaccine hesitancy and made the process as transparent as possible by posting trial data and document online. So if efficiency does not mean any cutting of corners, Hahn said. So FDA found ways to cut the red tape, but important safety checks remain in place, he said. So Dr. Peter Marks, director of the FDA Center of Biologics Evaluation and Research, said FDA requires vaccine developers to monitor for any significant adverse events as they seek standard approval. FDA and the CDC are monitoring as well, he said. So I believe it's Bell palsy. And so I'm adding this in there. That was something that they were concerned about. That could be a possible side effect of this vaccine. Um, so officials provided more information about whether certain groups of people should get vaccinated or to get the vaccine. So people who are pregnant or um, immunocompromised who were not included in the safety trials should discuss the vaccine with the providers on an individual basis, Mark said. And so I guess that's where they're taking extra precautions. Sites where Pfizer and BioNTech vaccines are administered will be able to treat allergic reactions. Mark says about 1.6% of the population has had severe allergic reaction to food or something in the environment but are eligible to receive the vaccine. So they can still get the vaccine even though they may have some kind of allergic reaction to it, which some people have allergic reactions to medications, but that doesn't mean the medication doesn't work. Um, so only people who have had severe allergic reactions to a previous dose of the vaccine or one of its components should not receive the vaccine. So those are the ones that will probably not be able to receive it because they have had severe reactions. Experts say the ingredients in Pfizer and BioNTech vaccine look typical. An active ingredient, in this case, messenger RNA, fats, salts, and sugars. So Dr. Matthew Hines, a hospitalist based in Tucson, Arizona, said if any part of the vaccine were to trigger an allergic reaction, it could be one of the components of the fat molecule, but that's rare. So we're talking about a number of relatively mild reactions that you can count on one hand out of 10,000 of people in the study, he said. So basically, two British people with severe allergies apparently had reactions to Pfizer and BioNTech vaccines this week. Allergic reactions were not a significant problem in the U.S. trial, which 20,000 people received 2 doses of the vaccine. So the U.S. trials kept out of subjects who have had severe allergic reactions. So Friday set another record of COVID-19 cases and deaths. So on the same day, FDA approved the first vaccine of the emergency use in the U.S. and the nations reached a million, what is called a milestone of COVID cases and deaths. So the country is seeing 3,309 coronavirus deaths on Friday, according to Johns Hopkins University data, surpassing Wednesday's record of 3,124 people that had died. Friday also saw the highest number of the daily cases to the date on the U.S., so 231,775. So Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine gets FDA authorization. So what does this mean? So the vaccine, Pfizer and BioNTech, receive emergency use authorization, which is not a full approval. But although it has received all of the standard short-term safety and effectiveness reviews, the vaccine has not been tested for the 2 years typical of the approved vaccine, so it is not yet clear on how the protection will last. So frontline healthcare workers, nursing home residents are expected to get the vaccine first. More doses will be rolled out this week, in the months to come. So Pfizer and Moderna each expected to deliver 100 million doses of their vaccine by the middle of the next year. And so the next week, the similar, which is COVID-19 vaccine developed by Massachusetts-based Moderna, will go through the same process, a review process that could swiftly be cleared for use. So Kansas is being harder hit. Rural town of 1,000 killing 20 residents, where most everyone knows most everyone else there. So it's a small town, but people are dying. The pandemic has killed farmers and their wives. Town's unofficial historian and beloved grandmother whose sour cream chocolate fudge frosty was always the talk of the party. So a mom whose piano playing was still echoes in the heads of the friends that are there. So it's really taking a toll on the smaller towns, the rural towns, and it has drained the hearts of the survivors as well. So those who feel guilty about recovering and the ambulance workers battling to treat their own relatives as well. And so the exhausted doctors watch nearly half of the patients die. So on Thursday, the coronavirus has killed a higher percentage in Gove, it's called Gove County residents than any other county in the U.S. One out of every 132 people. Basically, even today, mask wearing remains controversial, so friendships are strained. Authorities struggle to persuade their neighbors to follow basic public health guidelines, such as avoiding large gatherings. And so we're living through history right now, and I worry that the history books will say what they'll say about us. Erica Nicholson, 47, who helps run the town's volunteer ambulance service and survived the infection. So I'm going to stop there because I went pretty long, maybe more. So it's giving like an update of how people are going through this. And I wanted to add, so it is going to be long, but I wanted to tell you what I'm going through. Um, Here in South Los Angeles, I see a lot of people that aren't wearing that. It's in between. Some people wearing masks, some people aren't wearing masks. I'll see a lot of people who still are having gatherings. They still somehow in their mind believe that it's their conspiracy theories, their ideas. Maybe they're following a religion. Um, then I see smaller gatherings where it was larger earlier in the months, and the gatherings have gotten smaller because people have gotten sick. Um, I'm just telling you what I see in the community, that there is a lot of doubt, there's a lot of fear. Um, and so I wanted to mention this before I even leave this video. The other fear is eviction. And so there's still a moratorium here in California in Los Angeles County, but it's supposed to go until January the 31st. And so another fear during this pandemic, other than, the racial strife and these violent protests and the election debacle, um, and, people being on divided sides based on this pandemic issue, is eviction. And so there's still a lot of people who are either they're having trouble getting EDD money, they haven't received it, or they're about to run out. Maybe they've received it, they're about to run out of money. And then there's some people that they're afraid because they've been using their money to pay other bills and pay for food, and they're running out of food. They're food deprived. Um, I've seen long lines, even like around Thanksgiving. I'm gonna backtrack here. Thanksgiving, they had some Thanksgiving giveaways, and those lines were a lot longer than they were before. They've always been long, but they were longer this year than ever before, and it's because of job loss. Then you had a lot of people who were doing giveaways differently. They would package it up and you would drive, you'd see the cars lined up, and they just put it in the trunk of people's cars. So it wasn't people standing out there anymore. That was something different that I noticed. I believe Jackson's Limousine, they had a giveaway, you had to register. That's something that happens every Thanksgiving. It has been happening. It used to be people could stand out there. The difference this year, people had to drive up. They had to register and they had to drive up in cars. Um, the toy drives are different now. They're online, or they're drop-offs where you have to wear a face mask or something like that. So a lot has changed during this whole pandemic. Um, And there's also been a lot more stealing out of the stores. People stealing groceries, stealing food, because I've seen it. I've seen some people, they go in there, they fill their basket up and walk out and load their car up with food because they don't know what else they're gonna do. Um, Even though they had opened up public assistance for people, some people don't rely on that, or they can't apply for it. Maybe they don't trust it. Um, for various reasons. You also see a population of people who are undocumented, um, people here in the U.S. that are standing around at Home Depot. And it's always been like that, but it's even more now. But it's you can see the look in people's face that there's a lot more going on than was before because of this pandemic. And you also see people who you know that they're sick, and they know they're sick, but they're in denial. They're coughing. They don't look good. They might have come in contact with it, and they won't go get help. Um, and so I wanted to add that in there. And then you have this eviction moratorium that's still going on, and unless it gets extended, you're going to have another um, crisis on your hand. You're going to have a lot of people who are um, homeless, newly homeless, and sick with the virus. And so this has really devastated a lot of Americans. It has done a lot of people in, a lot of poor people here in the poorest part of Los Angeles County. A lot of people are struggling to just stay afloat and keep their families fed. Then, on a shorter note, and which is pretty sad, you do have some people who are taking advantage of the situation. They just, they're not really, they've been getting money, but they're not using the money to pay rent. Um, they're using the money to buy new cars or new gadgets, new, expensive things that they probably wouldn't otherwise. And maybe some of that has to do with the idea that they may never be able to do this, and there's poverty, and they just work for whatever they need and not what they want. They never get a chance to get what they want, so this is an opportunity to get what they want, and you know, seize the moment, I suppose. But it's gonna look bad in the end because I'm sure they're gonna want to know what people's circumstance is and why they are facing eviction. And so there are a lot of people that have been evicted, or they're facing eviction, or they're coming into the throes of that, or they're really dependent on the moratorium in order to have a place to stay. So I just thought that was important to put that in here. I know this is probably one of my longest videos, but because so much has been going on and I've been gone for a while, I just wanted to give you a recap of what kind of things that I've witnessed. I'm pretty observant. Some of the things I've seen, even in the workplace, there's jobs that they open up, and as soon as they open up, they're open for a while, and they have to close them down. Schools where they have like childcare centers where they have a few numbers of kids, and if somebody gets sick, then they have to close the school down. So it's like a yo-yo effect. It's like, we're open, we're closed, we're open, we're closed, we're open for a little bit. Okay, we're cleaning, we're making sure that we social distance. How do you social distance children? Once again, I said that earlier on, back in March, that it was dangerous. Some kids have gotten high fevers. Um, I think they carry it in their throats and their noses. Sometimes they get it from the parents, or they get it from like the party gatherings, people they've been exposed to. Then I've seen around here in the neighborhood of Los Angeles County, I'll say in the Westmont area, where kids are outside, they don't have a mask on, they're running around up and down the streets playing, and then people just they don't believe it. There is like a little gathering that happens. It happened pretty often. It's a Nigerian. I'm gonna say like an African Nigerian church or temple, and oftentimes you'll see the people, they have no mask. They gather as well in the area, and they are in disbelief of this pandemic as well because they have their own beliefs. So I see that a lot. I think that place is on Vermont and 91st. Um, It's a little temple, and the Nigerians will meet there regularly. But you'll never really see them with masks on because I believe their whole premises is that they're from a different culture and their religion. They don't really trust the governments either, and we know what's going on in their countries as well, how their governments have been treating them. Um, so we have a lot of different people here in South LA from different walks of life and backgrounds. But you have to consider that some of the people have different beliefs. So that's what drives them. And it's not necessarily that they support Donald Trump, because you have a lot of people here that don't support Donald Trump. They might support something else, and they have different beliefs. And so that's the reason why also they won't wear the mask, or they don't believe it, or they feel like the government has given up on them as a people. And so I just wanted to put that in there because I wanted to make this. Hopefully, it gets around that maybe some of the officials could hear this, that they know that there's a lot of distrust because of all of what has happened. And so it's going to take some time for people to actually trust that these medicines and these things work. They want to see what's going to happen. They want to see the reactions. They want to see the allergies. They want to see if anybody's going to die of these vaccinations. Um, and I'm sure in other communities, not just in the south side of Chicago and in South LA, there's other African American communities or African communities, black communities, where people feel the same pressure or disbelief. And mind you, there are some black Trump supporters who maybe that's the reason why they disbelieve. They're following that. I've run into a few people who are sort of in the middle. Not very many though, I'll say that. But anyway, having said that, I'm gonna let this video go. It's just sad. I saw an article recently that was saying with the COVID that they're gonna see a lot of people still coming for months, and these may be the people who are disbelievers, people who refuse to wear masks, people who may be in denial. They may know that they were sick and they were in denial. Um, I recently had gotten tested over at the Great Western Forum. That used to be like, well, now is the Staples Center they have in downtown LA where the Lakers play, but it used to be the home of where the original Lakers played in Inglewood. And so there is a place where you can go in and register to get a COVID testing to see if you're negative or positive. And they will test you. It's rapid, and they're pretty good about doing it. And this is to any resident, even if you live outside of the area, if you live close enough, if you're in the LA region, you can get tested. Your family can get tested. So I thought that was also another important factor. I'm sure there's other listings of close by places. Dodger Stadium is another one that I know of, and there's some various other places that are doing testing, and they're really good about it. The results come really fast. They come confidential. They can come in your email, and you can get the results within the week, maybe less than that. So I believe it's anywhere from 48 to 72-hour period of you getting your results. So having said that, I'm gonna let this video go. It's just sad because there is gonna be more death, and I just sense that, and there's gonna be more protests because people still believe that somehow in their mind that they've been cheated some kind of way, or they have their own set of beliefs. I believe that this whole thing has impacted people in a whole such a way where there is going to still be divide. Racism is not going to disappear. So, but I feel like the reckoning is going to reflect a lot of what people's decision making has been during this time of the coronavirus outbreak and pandemic. That you're gonna see, like we seen how politicians, what their views are, celebrities, what their views are, the regular people that are in local neighborhoods and communities, and what their views are, and how they approach this virus, and it's gonna carry out, and it's gonna change. It already has changed the way people think, the way people are moving now, and how they even run their businesses, and what they're going to do to survive. It's even changing the industry of jobs. Believe it or not, I believe this is going to impact jobs because people are going to still have it in the back of their mind. This could happen again. It could be another virus. It could be another sickness, which I'm sure it will. And people are going to have that, kids, they're going to remember this. It's going to be lasting, where they'll grow up there and remember people wearing masks. So, having said that, like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for listening. Be safe out there, because I think we are right now seeing the grim reality of what this pandemic has created. Thank you.